Hello, gorgeous humans. We are going to be doing some work in our journals today. I mean, what you're doing is completely up to you. I'm going to be working in my journal, but let me know what you're going to be working on. And as we go through, this is going to be an Ask Me Anything kind of stream. So if you have any questions, make sure to drop them into the live chat space. Or if you're here on the replay, you can drop them in the comments. I will endeavor to respond. Just make sure that if you are here live, you use 3 question marks at the start because it makes it very easy to pick out the questions as opposed to just general commentary and such. It makes my life a little bit easier because, as we know, if you've been here before, Jess isn't great at doing things while she's reading things. Yeah. Alrighty, so we're meal prepping. Oh, excellent. How exciting. I did my meal prep for the week yesterday. We're having lemon chicken for lunches. I say we, it's me, myself, and I are having lemon chicken for lunches. And I'm just like really on that overnight oats train right now. So more overnight oats because I love that you can just really change the flavor of them just using different ingredients. So that's been a lot of fun. You can see overnight oats, overnight oats, overnight oats. This is notably last week. So in terms of the work I'm going to be doing in my journal as we go through, it's really just getting myself set up for the current week, which is week 4. I've already got a box for the meals in, but I don't have a priorities list. I don't have any other kind of decoration done beyond these 2 pages. So I'll probably want to put a little bit here so I can also use it for reset week. But one thing I noted is that I gave myself a very long priorities list because it's like, oh, you're getting towards the end of the month, like, end of the cycle, end of the quarter. You're going to be feeling really like just ready to take action and stuff and really get that final push in. I have been in a slump for the entire of quarter 2, I swear. Not great. But that's okay because I am so super amped for quarter 3. I'm like almost kind of ready for it to already be here. But we have week 4, we have reset week, and then we can start quarter 3. And as part of that, we're going to be doing a 3 months 3 months to change your life type series. We're going to have a different video about that actually goes into what that is actually going to entail and such. That's going to be coming later this week, so stay tuned. But I need to get to the next available page that requires some decorations and such. This guy, because he needs his priorities box. And then we'll go put that there, and I am so glad that I got myself a wireless mouse because otherwise my mouse is over here and I'm right-handed, so it'd be like, hey, let me just pull that question up for you, which is not necessarily ideal. So let's have a look on my, not quite a mouse pad, it's more like a crafting pad, but we're going to start at the start, a very good place to start. I'm going to go back to the first question we had on here and we're going to work our way through. Alrighty. How can I write in a journal without ripping it apart and destroying it because I hate the way it looks? This one is hard. This one is tricky, especially if you have kind of like perfectionistic tendencies and you just want things to look a certain way. It's kind of a learned mindset of just letting yourself suck for a while and kind of calling it good enough where you're kind of like putting extra time, effort, energy into it and not really doing anything that makes it better. I find that oftentimes if I make a mistake in my journal, I get to a point of I'm not really adding anything by trying to fix the mistake. I'm just drawing more attention to it. So I try to make sure that I take the approach of what is good enough gonna look like for me. What you can do, especially if you've got like really nice notebooks that you want to use and such, but you're still like kind of in that practicing phase and you're worried that you're going to ruin things, is just do mock-up trials of your layouts in different journals. Don't spend too much effort and time on them though. Do mock-up trials of your layouts in a different notebook that's kind of like an El Cheapo, not too expensive. You don't mind it being a little bit messy notebook, just to make sure that you like the way it looks in general before you go and put a whole bunch of effort into making it look completely and utterly amazing in your own notebook. But it is one of those things that if you stick with this, after a while, you kind of fall into these tendencies of what you do and don't like in your journal. So, for instance, things that I know that I like it when I bring multiple items together and layer them. I'm really into that kind of layering and collaging effect at the moment. So that's something I endeavor to put into my themes, at least currently, because that's something that brings me joy in my journal. Other things that I like at the moment, I'm actually enjoying the non-ruled lines. Whereas previously, if a line wasn't perfectly ruled, I would have a conniption and I'd be like, nope, I have to like completely start this page over, or I need to stick something over the top of it or whatever. Knowing what you like can very much help you in terms of setting up layouts you actually like as well. The elements you like put into the layouts that end up being liked because of those elements being there. if that kind of makes sense. But it is essentially like a mindset shift. It's just trying to be nicer to you. And it's like, if you wouldn't say it to your best friend, don't say it to yourself. So if you're sitting there being like, oh, my layout sucks and it's fugly and I don't want to play with you anymore, like, who is that benefiting, really? Not us. Not really. Nobody, or at least not very many people, will do a better job of something when you bully them. Like, I mean, for me, if I try and bully myself into something, then rebel brain kicks and it's like, well, stuff it. I'm just gonna do it even worse now because you're being mean to me. We don't necessarily want that. I'm just gonna give myself a nice short priorities list here because I do not need much space. I'm kind of more excited about doing things in my journal for reset week than I am actually for week 4. I'm actually really amped up for reset week and quarter 3 as well. Got a lot of fun projects that I have planned for quarter 3. But in terms of this one, so what font size do you use for your headers and titles in your reading journal? That is a great question, and it is very much dependent on what font I'm using. There's no specific, like, size 12, size 14, or anything like that, because different fonts will have letters that are different sizes, and they'll take up different amounts of space on a line. So instead, what I do is I make myself a little box, like just insert shape. So I use Microsoft Office. Type out my words, insert shape, a little box, and then I size the box to the maximum amount of space that I want that header to take up. So typically speaking, for page titles, it'll be 1.5 centimeters down and usually like 13 centimeters across if I'm using an A5. If it is for these smaller headers like this one, it's usually 1 centimeter down and 6 centimeters across to make sure that I can have 2 columns. So in making that little box, it's effectively like a guideline or a reference for me, and I can use that as an overlay to see if the font that I've picked and the size of font that I've picked actually work well together. Let's see if I can show you. So we'll bring up a Word document so I can show you what I mean here, because it's not like, hey, every font gets used at this specific size. It's more like, this is the general spacing that I want. Let's say we're going to present, we're going to share a screen, this one here, cool. Hopefully we can see this, excellent. I'll just zoom you in a little bit. So if we do, I don't know, Wednesday is a good one because Wednesday is usually one of the long ones. And let's say I want to use Chomsky. Chomsky is one of my favorite fonts. We'll just make that a little bigger so we can see it. Whereas if we do Wednesday with, I don't know, Mystic. There we go. See how these are the same size? Like this is 48 and that is 48, but they take up vastly different amounts of space. So it's not really going to work super well if I try and say like, oh yeah, all of them need to be sized at this specific amount. So instead what I'll do is I'll go over to the Insert tab here and I will insert a shape. I know that you can't see the drop down, but just know that I'm in the shape menu and I will insert a box. Here's my box, beautiful. And I will size it appropriately. So for main page headings, that's 1.5 centimeters down and a width of like 13 across. That's if I'm doing a main page header though. For Wednesday, I'm probably not doing a main page header. That'll be 1 centimeter down and 6 centimeters across. Now I could use it as it is and try and overlay it, but I actually prefer to make it so I don't have any fill on the box. No fill. And we can put that over. We can see like, if I use this size, this Wednesday won't fit and neither will that one. So that's not quite the right size. But if we highlight that, make it a little smaller so I can try and fit it in. I'm just going to put you down a line because you're annoying me. There we go. Put the box over. So this one will fit into that 1 centimeter, like just. But that's still pretty good for me. Oftentimes I'll also think about it in terms of the hanging letters. Like I don't mind if a hanging letter sits underneath the line. So I'll look at the kind of bulk part of the letter here. So like the N, for instance, this N fits into the box quite well. We can make it maybe a little bit bigger, maybe a size 40 or something like that. And then just make sure it sits into that box pretty well. Again, not too worried about the Y dipping underneath the line because it's a hanging letter, so that's kind of fine. Whereas if I size this one to be size 40, it's still going to be way too big. I need to make that font smaller, so I do it per lettering style. I don't do it like a set number, if that kind of makes sense. Make it 30. 30 is still too big for this font in particular. Size 28, technically still a little too big. Like maybe I could make my peace with it. It really depends on what overall style I'm going for. But hopefully that helps. Hopefully that kind of clears that up for you. I find that the printed headers are really great for being able to have some decorative lettering and not having to do it yourself, which is quite nice. Alrighty. So ISO, in search of, I watched your video on book covers, but what size do you shrink them down when you're putting them in monthly sections? Like not the review sections. Love your content. I'm glad you like the content. Thank you so much. This is again dependent. So if we scoot you off to the side, friendo, we're gonna get the reading journal. So sometimes I will have the same size, sometimes I will have smaller. I effectively try and plan the layout out before I go and print the covers so I know what size I need to print them. So this one here, for instance, is 2.5 across by 3.75 down. I typically only measure mine based on the width because it's a little bit easier, mainly because then you end up with these kind of weird sizings, which is like half a dot grid box. But I use the same kind of dimensions, like ratio, I suppose. All of my book covers I print to a 2x3. So if we think about the reviews, which I know we're not specifically talking about the reviews, but for the review, that's 4 across and 6 down because that's like double 2, 3. So double 2 is 4, double 3 is 6. I use that kind of scaling for all of them, but then I just change the width of the picture on my computer when I'm preparing them for printing. So this one here is 1, 2, 3, 4. Yep, so that's 4x6 on a monthly page. This one is 2.5 by 3.75. 3.75. This one's 2.3.75. 2 by 3.75. Come on, math. This one is teeny tiny, so I think that one is 2 across by 3 down. So it's a nice little one that I can tuck into the corner. So it really depends on the layout in particular and what I want to fit in, and also the month in question. So for instance, on this one here, we had 1, 2, 3 across and 1, 2, 3, 4.5 down. Yeah, 4.5 down, 3 across. Whereas on this one, it was that 4x6 again. So I changed the structure of the layouts not every time I do it, but often enough that there's no set size. It's just making sure that whatever size I'm using, it's still that 2x3 ratio. So not probably super helpful, but hopefully helpful enough. Alrighty. What are the products for highlighting headers? That's a great question. I typically try to put a highlight down before I write a header over the top, mainly because I just don't trust smudging. So my go-to highlighting color pen or whatnot is usually going to be a brush marker because I just find it a lot easier to use, and probably a Tombow if I'm going to be using a brush marker. We need a small pen for this guy. Let me go find one of those. I have recently kind of started getting into mild liners because I do like mild liners a little bit more than I used to, at least. But I'm not great at doing an even line in general. So I always find it a little bit tricky to get a nice finish. So if we kind of go and look at like a second line highlight wherever I had that recently. You can't even see that one. We're not going to do that one. So second line highlights, I will always use Tombows. I know that's not what we're talking about here, but second line highlights, I will always use Tombows pretty much, just because I'm really familiar with them. I can have better control of the pen because I'm familiar with them, and I have enough of the paler colors that I can do this kind of thing and feel quite comfy with it. If I'm going to highlight a header, I will still probably use a Tombow. I'll still probably just do an individual line type thing, and then write the header over the top. If I were to, specifically want to write first, it's very much a question of what pens can I use that are water fast. So like microns are archival waterproof ink, so I could use those in theory. And I think the mark-on that I've been using to write in here recently, which is this guy, the Zebra Sarasa mark-on, that one is supposedly designed so that you can highlight over the top of it, but it also depends on what paper you're using, because this paper I've found is a little bit more smudgy than previous papers that I've had from Archer and Olive. I feel like the paper is gaslighting me a little bit, but it's fine. I've 6 months into this journal now. I've kind of gotten used to it a little bit more, so it's not the worst thing ever. But when I first started using it, I'm like, this is appalling. I feel let down. Not really, but let's see. How do you start over in a planner? Your planner started at the beginning of June and I have hardly touched it. Is it worth back planning or just starting from next week? I guess it really depends. So I am at a point in my journaling journey that I don't usually back plan. If something doesn't get used to completion, I just let it be and move on. But when I was first starting out, I would backplan. And that's because I would see those empty pages as like a failing kind of a thing. Like I'm failing to use my journal and such. And while that's not the mindset I have anymore, it is a mindset that helped me be more consistent when I started. I'm glad that that's not my mindset anymore. I'm glad that I'm no longer kind of like be wedded to this idea of everything having to be filled in perfectly and such. But it did help me practice and it did help me better learn what I like. Like if you feel like you're forcing yourself to use a layout, there's probably something wrong with the layout. Like I don't think there's anything wrong with you. I think there's definitely something wrong with the layout. And it might not necessarily be wrong forever, but it might not be right for right now, you know? So if we think about it in terms of, say, where's a layout? Here we go. This guy, right? So this is my good job me layout. And you can see that I have a couple of days here missing. In fact, I have a fair few days missing. And up until yesterday, I had way more days missing. Like, I think that these these four weren't even here yesterday. And for me, yesterday was the 15th. So I had almost 2 weeks that just hadn't been filled in. So I did a little bit of back planning for the things that I could remember, went and logged those down. It's a log, wanted to log the things that I was proud of myself for. But I didn't feel super compelled to like, oh my God, I have to fill this in. Because at this stage, I can't remember what I was doing most of those days. So me filling it in would be performative. I would just be filling it in to have a full layout rather than it actually being helpful for me. The purpose of this layout is for me to notice at the time what I've been doing that I can be proud of. It's not about getting the layout full, if that kind of makes sense. So coming back to your question, like, can you start over in another journal? Like, would you start over? If it is not going to bother you so much that those pages are empty, then totally fine to just pick up again, like the start of this week or the start of the new month or something like that. My personal recommendation would be the start of this week because you can use it as practice in the lead up for the next month, which is kind of nice. If it is going to be a bother to you, though, one thing that I like to do is find an elastic that you can use to section off part of your journal. So this guy here, this is my yearly collections journal. I use this year upon year. So it's got 2022, 23, 24, and now 2025 in here. But I don't want to have to try and find exactly what I'm looking for. And I could use a bookmark. Yes, the bookmarks exist, but just being able to open it straight to that page because they're all secured together is way easier for me. So if you can find yourself one of these bands, that can be a really good way to do it. Like you could probably tie it together with string if you wanted to, but this just makes it feel a little bit nicer. This guy, I think it's an Erin Condren product. I didn't buy it. I got it as swag at my first Go Wild. And I've actually found them quite useful. So I just use it to hold that section of the journal together so that then I can turn straight to this year. So that can be something you do. Or you could highlight it in some other way, like running washi tape down the edge of the page or something and being like, no, that was a false start. This is the official start. What can also be helpful is having a layout dedicated to kind of like commemorating your time that you didn't use it. I think that there's a blog post on the Artern Olive website that I did, which was about how to signify time away from your journal and things that you can put into your journal to kind of poke fun at the fact that you weren't there. So it could be like error 404, month not found, or it could be like, I don't know, caution tape, or it could be something that kind of indicates that time away, which can be a little bit of fun. It's not necessary to do, but it can be a nice way to kind of indicate that it didn't get used. For those layouts that don't get used as well, I'll go find you 2 examples. Give me a second. Scroll. This guy and this guy. It might be these two. I'm not sure. I've got a few notebooks, if we weren't already acutely aware of that. Yeah, the mild liner brush pens. Yeah, the mild liner brush pens are actually what have gotten me more into mild liners. They are pretty dang nifty pens. I do appreciate that they effectively have the mild liner colors, but they have a brush nib, so you can use them in tandem with the chisel tip, which is kind of great. So that's quite helpful. But all right, so the layout that I was looking for is in here somewhere. All right, so this is one that didn't get used. I was trying to use a time log, but for the month that followed this, I set up the time log, absolutely didn't fill it in. So I just filled this box in with some journaling about why it didn't get used. Like, you made the active decision to not worry about this spread in August. One of the pain points with setting up a month in advance is that life can change quickly. You set this up on July 10th, but then you won a house auction on July 15th, which was also the day Melbourne went into lockdown. These things combined mean your August was super busy, and honestly, you didn't want the added task of having to note and record when you're doing things. And then it's just like, went on from that or whatever. So if you want to fill the page with something, but you don't necessarily want to use it for the thing that you specified, you can just put some journaling on there to explain why it didn't get used. Also, it can be a good reflective moment. Like, okay, what about this didn't work for me? Why is it something that I didn't feel compelled to get in and use, or I wanted to use it, but I found it to be difficult or something like that. I don't know why we brought this one back. Go away. We have another one to look at. So another one that is also one of my favorites and is in, I believe it's in my first journal. So we'll try and flip through and see if we can find it. Not that month. I think it must be in April then. This journal is a mess. There we go. See? Obviously, I died. So if you don't want to fill in your tracker, you can just put something like that on. You don't have to actually write it on the page. You could just stick a sticky note in and write it on that if you wanted to. It doesn't need to be put actually in here. Yeah, that's the one, right? I love that. Several months later. Like, if you just want to stick something in to say, like, hey, didn't do it. I think that was one that we have a printable for on that blog post as well, because I made one that's supposed to be kind of in that styling or in that font. Awesome. Yay! YouTube member. Pleasure to have you with us. I don't know if it's a renewal or it's new for reals, because it doesn't tell me those kind of things, but I'm still excited that you got your name highlighted in green. Aw, yes. So what was the next question? How are you feeling about your setup with regards to not using months? I mean, I've never fully skipped a month, but I do have this August. Come on, Jess. It was April. We're doing well. This April was one that I abandoned. I don't know. There was just something about it. I was not feeling it at all. So didn't really use this. Me and the monthly log have beef. So it is what it is. Half used, not used. This is my wedding dress. It looks like a body bag. I thought it was kind of fun. Used it for this one. Was finding it kind of difficult to get into here, but still kind of slugging through. Got to here and I'm just like, oh no. So then I stick a bomb to this page and just changed up the style to something that's kind of like very simple, tried and true. Like, anytime I want to go minimalist in my journal, my default mindset is it has to be black and yellow. It doesn't have to be, but that's kind of where like my safe minimalist space is, I suppose. So I used it like this for about 2 weeks. Then I went on holiday and just didn't use it at all. Came back to something that was going to be a lot more my style at the time. I'm not necessarily thrilled about it, because it feels lame to set things up or like, print off all these headers and such and have these stickers have been used and whatever, and I just didn't really like it. But I'm also glad that it got to a point where I disliked it enough that I made active changes, if that kind of makes sense. Like, it's not bad. Like, it doesn't look that trash, but it's not something that I ever really hope for when it comes to my monthly setups. Like, in doing a monthly setup, I want to use it. And in setting this one up, I wanted to use it, but I just wasn't vibing, wasn't feeling it. But this is probably the closest that I have ever gotten to abandoning a month. And it's more so just I change track halfway through. Usually I'll just slug it out, stick it out, slug it out. I don't know if that's a regular word for it. Slug it out does not sound good at all. Oh dear. Anywho, I think it's time, tink, for a drink break. Let me know, what are you drinking? I have water because I'm actively trying to drink water in the mornings nowadays. And as we go through, just a reminder that if you have a question, I'm going to be so much more likely to see it if you put 3 question marks at the front. So if you've already posted one and you didn't include the question marks, make sure that you just chuck it down again and include the question marks, because that is what my eyes are hunting for right now. Just water for you, excellent choice, fabulous. I am feeling hydrated as heck, or at least I am trying to. So, what made you decide on B6 for the size of my next journal? This one was mainly for, if we think about this, right? Okay, so this was maybe Jess is feeling a little creatively burnt out and such. So, wasn't feeling it, decided to make some changes. And the changes that she made was she's going to go to a more scrapbooky style. She wants to have less information on a page, which is not a comfort area for her, right? Speaking about her as if she's not here. I don't like to have pages that aren't super full. I enjoy pages that are full. I enjoy having excessive amounts of things written down and fitting in 2 columns per page and that kind of thing. I enjoy it. But I also have found that I think I'm letting my daily task lists get away from me in a sense. I'm letting myself write down too many things, which is making it harder to prioritize the things that actually have to get done. So I thought if I gave myself a smaller amount of space, I might be able to tackle that. Also, given the fact that I've been feeling creatively not super there, I thought it would be good to go back to a size that I felt my most creative in, and I have previously felt my most creative in a B6. I think that the smaller size makes decorating the layouts feel more approachable, and, like, of course, you have to balance that with, trying to actually have information on the page, otherwise it's not really gonna work so well, but I think that it's been good for me previously to use that size, so I'm excited to use it again. Just trying to, yeah, less information on the page and still having it feel full and still having it feel decorative and, like, that creativity aspect. Feeling like I can be creative, but it not being overwhelming, which is kinda nice. I'm hoping for that. So far, it's going okay. I haven't obviously gotten very far into it, but, setup video is coming later this week, I think, so stay tuned. I'll also talk more in that video about why I selected that size in particular, but alrighty. So, where were we? Somewhere along here. Yeah. Got my priorities box, got my meals. This one already has decoration, so I'm going to flip to this page, and we'll do some decoration here. So I'm gonna excuse the yelling. I'm frequently writing in my bourgeois book. Is it okay if I start writing from January now? Yeah, sure. I question, if you're saying you're writing from January, do you mean, like, you're gonna back write from the last January? Like, the January that has gone? Or are you just gonna hold off until next January? Because at the end of the day, you don't need permission to do what you want with your journal, but if you feel like you do, I give you full permission. Like, I grant you all the permission to do whatever it is you want to or need to do in your journal. I think that especially when it comes to a system like bullet journaling, which I feel like can be very freeform and such, it can feel a little bit daunting because there almost are no rules. Like, there are technically rules, so we go hunting for rules and go hunting for those kind of restrictions. So if you feel like going back to January is going to be something that helps you use your journal and you're actually going to get use out of your book, then I am 100% for it. 100% behind it. If you feel like that's just going to be a stress and a burden and you're not going to get on and use your journal, then it's going to be a no. It's going to be a no from me. I don't want you to feel stressed about this. I don't want this to be a thing that feels like a burden. We would prefer this to be something that you enjoy. And whichever system, whichever method is going to give you more joy for this, we're doing journaling here, not just journaling, then that is the one that I would go with. Me attempting to get the end of this tape off because somebody, aka past me, left it in a state. So, next question. Poink. What do you do in regards to goals when you just need to survive the next few months? Just go easy on myself. I attempt to. Of course, the inner critic always decides that, like, oh, you're not doing enough, and you should be doing more, and you should be doing better, and rah rah rah. Nobody bullied themselves to success, and the few people who did are probably not better for it, to be honest. Right? If life is going to be hectic, I do not change the goal. I change where the goalpost is. So if I'm targeting like, oh gosh, I wanted to have ABC done by the end of October, but the next 4 months are going to be hella busy, and I just know that I'm not going to have the same capacity that I usually would, then it's like, okay, same goal, end of December. All right, let's just push it out a little bit. Of course, we want to balance that with not pushing things out indefinitely, because life is always going to be busy and such. But sometimes we do need to give ourselves a little bit more grace and give ourselves a little bit more leeway on not doing everything. There are seasons where we can do everything, but they are not every season, because that's a surefire way to burn out. We don't want to burn out. We still want to, we want to get things done, and we want to achieve our goals and all of these kind of things, but we don't want to do it at the expense of being able to do anything, if that kind of makes sense. So to answer your question, if life is going to be hectic, if life is going to be hella busy, and you already foresee that you will not be able to get as much done, don't even give yourself the expectation to get that much done, because that's just a way to give yourself disappointment. We don't want to disappoint ourselves. I mean, I've disappointed myself plenty in my life. I'm not looking to do more of that. And I assume that that's probably the same case for you. But alrighty, next question. So, don't feel like Go Wild will be an annual event will you attend? Well, I mean, I would like to. I would like to attend every single year. It's just whether or not it's like financially feasible, With it being New Orleans next year, New Orleans is somewhere that is probably more on my bucket list for travel, so I would be very keen to go. But I am also already going to Singapore/Korea at the start of the year, and we were planning a family trip to Japan in September, so it's very much we will have to wait and see. My friends and I have also decided that we wanted to go down to Christchurch, which is just in New Zealand, so it's not like a super big trip, but they have I think it's like a romance authors convention thing. I'm not too sure when exactly it is. I think it might be in April, and because they haven't announced the dates for Go Wild yet, I'm like, do I wait out and just see when Go Wild's going to be announced for? Or do I just buy the tickets and like hope that it's not going to be at the same time? Or we're not even at the stage of us as friends buying tickets yet, but I just don't want to. I don't want to miss out on things. I'll get the FOMO, and then I won't be able to go, and I'll be sad. I don't want that for myself. In terms of decorative pieces, I pre-cut a whole bunch of pieces of tape because these were some tapes that I was decluttering. This journal setup was effectively the tape's last hurrah in my notebooks, so I cut off a bunch of elements before I gave the tapes away so that then I could decorate these layouts in full. Smart me. I want something longer. Maybe this? That's 2 pieces. Could put that there. It's kind of cute. Feeling cute. Alrighty, we'll do that one. Alright, next question. What do you do for a daily to-do list? In your journal or a specific book for itself? Daily to-do lists all go in here. I love a daily to-do list. I am a big fan. And I just put them under an individual header for each day. So once I stick this in, we'll flip back and have a look at some of my previous daily to-do lists. So typically the day before the day is when I start writing my to-do list. I will just put in a header on the page, like slap down my header stickers, because that's what I use for my headers, and then just write out anything and everything that I can think of that I want to do in that day. And then once the day rolls around, I will just add things to it as they come up. I like to think of my daily spaces, these daily task lists. Scrolling back. Yes, it's scrolling in a book for sure. This guy here, right? This is a daily task list. So things that we have done today. The laundry towels, they have been washed. So I can at least cross that off. They are in the washing machine. They are washing. But as the day progresses and as I think of other things that I want to do, I drop them here. Even if they're not necessarily things I want to do today. So effectively, this is like the first touch point, I guess you could think of, for my journal. So throughout the day, if I'm thinking about things like, oh, I really want to revamp my Spotify playlist, so like write it down, even if it's not something I want to do specifically on Monday, with the idea that then at the end of the week, or usually at the end of the spread, I try and move those things to a place that's more relevant to them. So whether that's moving them forward onto another day, or if it's moving them into a separate list, which is like a someday maybe list for projects that I want to get to at some point, but they don't need to be like today or this week or something like that. So these are where my tasks list go. So Tuesday goes across to here, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday went across to there, Saturday. You can see all of these ones, little priorities. So that's typically how I like to do mine. I will only often write a task list on a separate piece of paper or in a separate space if I am feeling super, super stressed. If I'm feeling super overwhelmed and I'm like, I can't even look at you right now because you're freaking me out. Get out of here. And I will get out a separate piece of paper and write things down. So sometimes that'll be in something like a scribble book. So for instance, this guy here, this is a scribble book because it's just for scribbles. Like it's for messy stuff. Or I will write it on something like this. This is a list that Vogel wrote, so this is Vogel's list. Or I will write it sometimes on my computer. Like if I just need to get them out really, really quickly because I can type faster than I can handwrite, I will just open up a new Word document and just to get it all out of my head. Because that I see that as a self-care task. I do think that is a self-care task. Using your journal to write things down and also just getting things out of your head. I'm not necessarily the greatest at doing it on a super regular basis, but I try. I am trying. Let's see. How did you start meal planning? Any tips? I just did it, which is not a helpful tip. So let's talk a little bit more about this. So I saw online, let's see if I can find the picture for you. Because it was helpful to me. So where did I put you? Okay, that one. All right, present, share screen. Cool. We can see this? We can see this? Excellent. I came across this picture online, and I loved it. I thought it was such a cool idea. Effectively, this person had meal prepped their breakfast and lunch for every week of the year. They'd put in some little color codes to show what it was that they had prepped. Like, was it something that was vegetarian? Was it low calorie? Was it quick? Da-da-da-da. And then they had highlighted their favorites and such. And I was like, this is absolutely excellent. And this sat in my inspiration folder for like a year and a half before I actually decided to action it. So in preparing my journal, this guy, for this year, I was like, you know what, we're committing to it. We're going to make that layout and we're going to do meal prep. And then because I put the layout in my journal, I felt compelled to use it in part. I also knew that it was just going to help me eat better because I am, if left to my own devices, I will typically default to takeout, which is not necessarily super aligned with my health or finance goals. So because it kind of hits a double whammy, I'm like, this is important. We're going to actively try this. So I started with things that were actually on that person's picture because they had also shared their, like recipe links. If you scroll down somewhere in here, somewhere in the mess that is Reddit, because I don't use Reddit very often, they had links to all of the individual recipes that they had tried and what they had done and like had pictures for them and such. So I just went through theirs and started picking out some that I thought would be kind of cool because it's like, okay, well, you meal prepped this and you've done what I want to do. So what can I do that you've already done, kind of a thing. Like, I'm using that as a template. So I did something like that. But then I started just kind of pulling off recipes from the internet and such and finding ones that looked interesting to me. The first lunch recipe that I made was one that I had already made previously. So it felt like a really easy start. It's like, I know I like Thai yellow curry. I can make that in bulk. It heats up nicely. Like that's going to be super easy. Then when we get to, I think about week 7, 8, somewhere in here is where I started taking my health goals maybe a little bit more seriously. So actively trying, I suppose, to eat more nutritiously and such. So they changed a little bit in terms of what I was making. But you can see that I still have things that I consider to be favorites and go-tos. Like tangy tomato chicken with wedges, tangy tomato chicken with wedges, tangy tomato, tangy, because I liked it the most time. Like this one, week 13 when I made it was the best. And since then, every iteration has been good, but it just doesn't measure up to the hype of the first one. I do need to make sure I find more recipes though, because I don't want to get sick of it. So in terms of starting my meal prepping and planning and all of this kind of thing, my meal planning specifically, we have been doing that since I was a kid. So it's kind of like my mum and I guess my dad, but mainly my mum, she would plan out our meals with us collaboratively for the week. It's only recently though, like with my meal prepping, that I've actually gotten good at sticking to my plan, because I would be the kind of person that's like, oh yeah, I plan it for the week. This is great. I love this plan. And then I'd get to usually Wednesday or Thursday and be like, I don't want to eat the rest of this plan. I don't want to eat these ones. Can we just freeze the meat that we got out like 3 days ago for this recipe? Wow. I don't I don't think that the rebel brain in me really appreciates meal planning as much as I don't know, rational Jess. I don't know if she's all that rational, but aspirational Jess loves meal planning and she loves sticking to her meal plan. Rebel brain Jess doesn't like being told what to do, so she's like, no, you can't control me. You don't have enough gym badges. I find that meal planning and sticking to your meal plan is a lot easier if you plan things you actually like to eat, though. It's all good and well to be like, oh yeah, I'm going to eat really healthy this week. I'm going to have like quinoa and kale salad. But if that's not something you enjoy eating, then you're going to get to that meal and be like, nope. And you're going to get takeout. Okay, you might not. You might have better willpower than me. But in my experience, it doesn't work if you're planning meals that you don't actually enjoy. One of the things we also like to enjoy for our meals is novelty, so trying new things, which we try to build into the meal plans as well. So we don't necessarily try something new every single week, though aspirational us would like to, but it's not actually what happens. There we go. Cut this one off nice and carefully. Trim. Beautiful job. Not really. That's a little bit janky looking. It doesn't probably look so janky on camera, but let's see. What did you do to learn to letter so beautifully, and how long did it take you? Well, nowadays I cheat more than anything because I just print off headers and stick them into my journal, but it actually doesn't take as much practice as I think people think it does to get better at something. I think that's also because if you think about where we start with any new skill, right? Like we started at zero, now we're here. Start at the bottom, no practice done, no reps, no time in the game, kind of a thing. The amount that you can learn is very high at the start. With very little effort, you can get at least halfway decent very quickly. To the extent where my common lettering style, the one that I do when I actually hand letter, I kind of just used it for the headers in one monthly setup, and now it is my go-to for every setup that I do. Let's see if I can find a journal that actually shows this off. Otherwise, I'll just write something out for you, but please don't knock things over. Thank you. Good. So, if we go to like this style of lettering, right? This style of header, that is my go-to lettering style. I effectively found a font that I liked online. I think it was called Australia Script. Found a font I liked online and mimicked it for a month. And after 1 month of just doing it for my headers, I'm like, okay, this is my go-to lettering style now. Sure, over time, I have gotten like better at it, I suppose. It requires less mental energy to figure out how to do certain letter forms, and I've kind of developed it to be a style that I find quite easy to do. But if you think about that compared to my first lettering pieces, like my first lettering piece that I ever did in my journal, let's see, because we've got the first journal out, so we might as well have a look at it. I did this is fake calligraphy, where you essentially just write it as a cursive word and then go and thicken the downstrokes. I was so proud of myself. I was like, oh, what is it that the kidlets say? She ate and left no crumbs. I'm not a kidlet. I do not do the slangs, but I was very proud of myself. I'm like, you did a great job. I look back at this and I'm like, oh dear, you could have done so much better. And again, it's not bad, but that's because I spent ages doing that. I remember penciling it out and erasing it and redrawing it and repenciling it and reerasing it and all of that kind of thing to get to that end product. And nowadays I could do this, but way better, way faster. And I don't necessarily do any active practice of my lettering outside of the hideous scribbles that we had here where I was practicing with a flexible brush pen. See? Practice. Awful. Close that up. Don't need to look at that one. But I've since discovered, I suppose, decided more. It's more of a decision. I've decided that regular brush lettering isn't really for me. It is definitely a skill that I could practice on and learn and figure out, but I would rather spend my time, effort, and energy somewhere else. My regular go-to lettering nowadays is what I'm going to call good enough. It is not the beautiful photography or like actual proper calligraphy. It is effectively just like stylized cursive, and it looks good enough for most of the things that I want to do. So you can do active practice, and active practice is probably the best way to go if you're looking to really level up your skills, and you probably won't need all that much active practice. We need a lot less practice of things than I think we sometimes think we do. Like if you want to be, like a lettering master, sure, you're probably going to need a fair bit of practice. But I'm not out here looking to be a lettering master. I'm just looking for good enough. I guess then the question becomes like, how do you do active practice for lettering? So this would be something like, one, finding a style of lettering that you want to mimic or recreate. That's a good place to start. You're just going letter by letter. That's like writing out the letter A and actively trying to copy that style, write it out 10 times, go over those letters and say like, okay, well, which of these look the best? What's wrong with the other ones? Like, is this loop too loopy? Like, is the curvature on this A too narrow or anything like that? You're getting kind of critical about it. The problem here is that if you're the kind of person who gets a little bit sensitive towards those kind of criticisms, we're not trying to like critique ourselves. Again, we're not trying to bully ourselves to better. That's not the point. But by intentionally looking at them and looking for how you could change or tweak it or something, or what makes one lettering form good versus another one that is not what you're looking for, being able to pay attention and notice those things means that you will be able to better recreate the letters later in the style that you want. Hopefully that makes sense. And hopefully that's helpful. I mean, hopefully all of this is helpful. I'm kind of just running my mouth throughout the entire thing of this. My writing's chicken feet and ran it through ink. No! And I think it's also like one of the things that has impressed me so much is comparing my first lettering here to how I do capitals nowadays. And I know in part it's going to be the pen because I was using a fine liner here, and nowadays I use like a click pen, kind of a ballpoint click pen. Come on, I knew what I meant, but just the styling of the letters, even though it's still like this is still my lettering, and then my current one is also my lettering, there has been significant improvement in that too. And that wasn't active practice; that was just writing more. Just the act of doing the thing, you kind of get better without trying by accident or something like that. There we go. Snip, 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 snip. Ah! There we go. Make sure that doesn't stick to my desk. Thanks, that was a helpful answer. I'm glad it was helpful. That is what I aim to bring to the table. Alrighty, next question. So, here we go. I'm looking for spreads, business spreads. Do you have any? Depends on the business. I mean, I have layouts on the channel that are about social media, but that is not necessarily everybody's business. It also really depends on what you're looking to track. If you're looking to track like inventory and financial stuff and revenue and bits and pieces, possibly, maybe there are some bits on the channel that you could apply. We do have ones related to finance and like money and expense logs and such. So if that's something that would be helpful, then I would probably seek those ones out. But I don't have any specifically related to business. If that, yeah, I wouldn't say I do. I have ones related to like work related layouts, which of course we haven't had a drink in like 24 years, tink. All right, so make sure that you're having some water while we go through this, or whatever you're drinking. I'm not going to make you drink water. But yeah, we have ones that are related to like work-related layouts. Maybe some of those could be tweaked, but I also think that a lot of the time, layouts come back to like 5 different things, like a calendar, which can be used for a meal plan or a schedule or a monthly log or like anything, a list, which again can be used for pretty much anything, a table, which could be used for a bunch of different things. So that's like finding relations between things, like a date versus something, or like habits or anything like that. What's the other style? I know there are 5 key styles. Oh yeah, future log style. So like the 12 boxes that you have either one for each month, or it could be for, you know, 2 boxes for each of 6 months or something like that, depending on what kind of information you're trying to capture. But a lot of those different structures can be used in a lot of different ways. So I would probably just be thinking about what is it in particular I'm trying to organize that is business related, and how best could I capture that information? Because I don't necessarily have any specifically. So sorry. What's a good scrap journal that is on the cheap end? My personal preference for a scribble book is this guy. If you want one that's actually a little bit more akin to your size of doc grid journal, then I think they're called the Baguet notebooks, Buke. So it's either Buke or Bouquet. I don't know how they pronounce it. I haven't bought them myself, so I can't really tell you what they're like, but I have heard positive things from other people. So hopefully that is something you could investigate. I personally just like these ones because I just enjoy writing in them. They just feel nice to write in. And I think that the dimensions are fairly similar to my regular notebook. Let's see. So 13 centimeters across. Yep, there's 13 on the inside here, and this one only has 18 and a half down, so it isn't quite the right sizing. I need another half centimeter to get the full layout, but in terms of a scrap journal, this is my favorite. This is the Kokuyo, and I think you can get them on Stationery Pal, or at least that's where I got mine. But it depends on how scrap you want to go. You could also pick, like I pick up scrap notebooks sometimes, or could pick up scrap notebooks at Kmart, but I know not everybody has Kmart. For some people, Kmart is gone, is goodbye, which is sad. I'm sad for you right now. Alrighty. So, how do you start if you have little time due to work and you really think it would help your mental health and stability? What is the best way to be able to get started? I guess that my recommendation here, outside of just start, because that's a lame recommendation and just do it is not the kind of thing that actually helps, would be something like figuring out what your MVPs are, you know, minimum viable pages. Like, what are the stars, the key players that are actively going to be helping you get your journal to do what you want your journal to do for you. So if I was in a super rush, super hurry, needed to set up a new journal, what would be the things that would be the most helpful or impactful, or, you know, positively impactful? We want positive impact here. What is going to be the stuff that is going to help me get a journal doing what I need a journal to do? And then once I have more time, what is it that I can add in after the fact? In thinking about that, it could be the kind of thing that you set up your MVPs, your minimum viable pages, and then you leave a little bit of space, and then you get started on whatever month you're working from. If that is the case, then it can be helpful to not put too many blank pages in, because I personally find often if I leave blank pages in my notebook with the intention of coming back and putting something specific in there, I don't. And then they just get left there empty, not doing anything. So if you're taking the original bullet journal method approach, you don't leave blank pages, you just add things in on the next available page. I don't enjoy that because I'm a bit particular. I'm a bit of a persnickety biscuit, and I would rather have all of my start of journal stuff at the start of the journal rather than putting it somewhere in the middle of the notebook and then having to find that page. But I also use notebooks that don't have numbered pages, and I don't use an index. But I also typically start setting up my journal a lot ahead of time, decently ahead of time, so that then I can make sure that I have time to put all of those things in that I want to. But if you're just getting started, you don't have a lot of time, consider what is it that you want your journal to do for you? What do you need it for? Thus, what pages are going to be your minimum viable pages, the ones that you definitely need to have in order to fulfill that purpose? Set those up, leave space for anything that you might want to add later, but don't leave too much space, and get started on the next month. I also find that just lowering the bar in terms of expectations of what kind of like decorative elements I want to put in here also helps. You don't necessarily have to go minimal. You can, but you don't have to. But doing something that's a little bit easier, doesn't require a lot of long time wise, like long investment of art, something like stickers or tapes or things like that. They just don't take as long to put into your notebook. Those were the kind of things that I would probably be investigating for my setup, because then it still looks nice and I still want to use it, but I didn't have to spend like 3.5 weeks putting it into the notebook. But then again, I'm also not the kind of person who does a lot of time intensive art in my journal anyway, so can take that with a grain of salt. At the end of the day, if you're setting up a journal and you want to actually use it, you just need to figure out what in particular you need to put in there to make it so you will use it. Because I don't like feeling like I've wasted time, and you're probably the same. I don't think any of us particularly like feeling like we've wasted time. And one of the ways that I want to make sure I don't feel like I've wasted time is setting up journals that I actually use. Because it feels kind of lame to set it up and then not use it. You're like, cool, spent all that time and this is what I got to show for it. Insert nothing here. All right. Is your morning Monday or Sunday? Right now, it is Monday morning for me. We have just almost hit 10 a.m. Let me know, what time is it where you are? I'd be curious. Are you still on Sunday? Or are you chilling on Monday like I am? Are you actually getting ready for bed because it's actually really late in the evening for you? Or is it, more midday, early morning type thing? Tink. All right. Glug, glug, glug. Excellent. We're going to do a quick question just because I saw it. Not that one. They moved. There we go. So, if you ever miss a day, do you go back and write out what you didn't check at all? Yes. Sometimes I do that. Mainly because I want my journal to be an evidence log of, like, I have achieved things. So that can be quite helpful for me to just get that appreciation of having actually done things. Otherwise, I get to the end of the day thinking, like, what did I even do? So recently I went and backfilled, I think it was Saturday over here. I backfilled some because I had a space here. At the middle of Saturday, I was like, I need to put in a spot for Sunday. So I had flipped over and started putting my Sunday in, and then I never actually ended up adding anything else to the Saturday. So yesterday I was just like, nah, we're going to add some more things on Saturday. I probably could go back and add some things to Wednesday, but I'm like, Wednesday was majority of a week away. So that's a no. It's a no from me. We're just going to flip the page and ignore that one. I am not against backfilling, provided we are not using it as a way to procrastinate getting things done in the here and now. I typically backfill, when I do it, is mainly so that then I have that evidence log of having done things. Yeah. So how do you adhere to trackers or something you need to keep track of but keep forgetting? I don't. No, that's not helpful either, is it? I find that oftentimes I will consider the time span that the tracker is over and whether that is the best way for me to capture that information. So if we think about, sorry, Vogel's come to talk to me. What's up? I will allow it. Thank you, Vogel. Bye. The bag fell on the floor. He was just asking if he could close my door. But thinking about the timeliness of trackers. So, for instance, if we have a look at, I don't even know when the last one would have been that I used. Yeah, I'm not even going to be able to find you an example here. But oftentimes, when I would set up trackers previously, stuff it. We'll actually look at a previous journal. Why not? Hello, cutie. This one is one of my favorites. Even though not everything is filled out perfectly, this is still one of my favorite journals. It has some of my favorite layouts in here and themes that I did. But if we have a look at, this is my Mean Girls theme. So these are my trackers, all right? So for this one, I was using mini calendar trackers. So we have a full month for each of the trackers and such, and then filling in when I did the thing. Whereas if we look at this one was also a full month, but it was a vertical style, all right? So one of the things we can look at is, am I not using this tracker because I'm finding it too difficult to use or too difficult to fill in? Could I change the styling of it so that then I'm more likely to get in and fill it in? One of the things that would have held me back from using this is multiple colors. So I have to pick the correct color to fill it in on any given day so that I can keep up this repeating pattern. I do love the repeating pattern. I think it's fun and it's nice to look at, but it wasn't necessarily the easiest thing to do. Whereas if we go back to the October one, which is here, this October one, I would just be using the same black pen that I had previously been using, like to write all of my stuff in and whatnot. I didn't have to get out any specialty supplies to fill this one in, so that made it easier to fill in. But the other thing, which is the one that I was kind of first alluding to, is oftentimes monthly trackers do not work as well for me as weekly ones. You can kind of see that this one might be completely filled in. Yay, Jess. Excellent for her. She probably backfilled this. Maybe half this information is incorrect. We don't know. We'll never know. But this one, you can see that towards the end of the month, I just stopped filling it in. This is a really typical pattern for me when it comes to monthly habit trackers. If I have a monthly habit tracker, usually I get to the mid-month point-ish, and then I fall into a slump with it, and then I don't fill in the rest. It's also around that time, though, that I would be setting up my next monthly setup, and I'd be getting excited about that. So I'm like, I don't even want to look at this anymore because I'm too excited to use the next one. Probably isn't a problem for quite as many people. Mainly because if you're not filming your setup and such, you probably don't have to set it up as much in advance as I do, but that can be something that I kind of actively try and pay attention to, is like, is the time frame that I'm using this tracker for helping me in terms of using the tracker? Like, is it being like assistive or detrimental to me using this tracker? So one of the things that I noted was monthly, that is detrimental. I don't get in and fill it in at the end of the month, which means I can't have this tracker holding me accountable to doing the thing because I'm not even coming back to look at it. So what could I do differently? That was where I effectively decided, like, okay, we're going to do weekly trackers instead. So I tapped out of that, quit that, and went to doing little weekly trackers. I don't think I have any in here specifically. Oh yeah, okay. I lied. There she is, the routines tracker. This is also the end of a cycle though, so she's not super filled in. So for instance, week 2, like, did I do the things every day? No, but at least I filled in whether I did or didn't do them. But towards the end of this month or cycle, I did note that I wasn't getting in and filling it in. I'd get to kind of like, that midweek point and just start slumping on it and not actively go in and fill the other stuff in. So it's like, okay, well, if you're not doing the thing, if you're not getting in and filling this in, then something needs to change. And oftentimes I will not change myself, I will change my journal, because it's a lot easier to change our journal than it is to change ourselves. Changing your own tendencies with your journal, no. It's probably not going to be the way that it works. You might also find that keeping track of your habits is not best done in your journal. That's okay. I know that other people like to use apps and such to keep track of those things. I know that for a while there I was using Finch. I just saw the question about it. How's Finch going? I stopped using it. It stopped being fun. I started to try and hack the system more than actually do my habits and such. So I deleted the app. But we'll talk more about that in a second. But yeah, you might find that in terms of keeping track of things, maybe your journal isn't the place for keeping track. Maybe you need something that's in more of kind of like an upfront visual space. Maybe you need, like, if you're focusing on one particular habit, say, maybe you need a calendar on the wall that you can put a big fat cross through to be like, yeah, I did the thing. That day is done, kind of a thing. It effectively becomes a poster to your achievement. It's like a wall poster that shows that you did the thing. But it depends on how many habits you're keeping track of, obviously, and the best way for you to specifically track it. So if you find that journal-based habits aren't working for you, it might be worth trialing for like a week or a month or something, a different system. Yeah, hopefully that helps. So, any advice on how to keep calm during the crisis and the terrible news and overwhelming burnout? Honestly, no. like, because life is pretty crazy right now for a lot of people, and I guess I'm kind of fortunate in a way that I live. I mean, I always feel fortunate to live in New Zealand. I like living here, but we are somewhat removed from it, and that means that I am not like constantly affronted by a lot of this stuff. Um, or can also be helpful if you're trying to protect your peace here. Okay, so we're not talking about being ignorant to things. We're just protecting our peace because sometimes you need a reprieve from these things. It's just like don't watch the news because while the news is very good to for staying informed and all of that and such, it is also oftentimes sensationalized. And I'm not saying that they're lying to us. That's not what I'm saying. But oftentimes the things that are going to get more clicks are the things that are going to be put out there or highlighted and such. The things that are going to hold attention and the things that hold attention a lot of the time are negative. So if you're finding you're just you can't right now, you literally cannot even, then maybe it's time to take a little break from the news. Again, not to be ignorant to it, not to head in the sand or anything like that, but it's just to protect your peace because your peace is still very important. You need to take care of yourself. Yeah. As said, I don't have the greatest advice for this. If other people have advice though, we'd probably love to hear it. So, alrighty. We already answered this question. I think it came through again, so we're going to get rid of that one. Talk a little bit about your goal workshop, what it actually is and what's expected or offered during the month. Okay, so goal workshop. Not too sure what you're talking about here. We have a goals course, which isn't so much a workshop. That's more like a lifetime membership to the goal kind of course content and such. And that means it like takes you through the goal setting process. Like how do you brainstorm your goals, select your goals, plan them, and then action them. That's the course. We also have the goal club, which is for people who want kind of more like weekly accountability and such. So we have weekly meetings to just do goal work together. It's effectively some body doubling time. We have accountability posts so that we can specify like, hey, this is what I want to get done for the week, and then check in the next week to say like, did I actually do the thing? That's also where we have all of our goal resources that are kind of like from the goals course, but more so just like what's the word? Like the templates and the kind of like planning stuff rather than the goal workbook, because the goal workbook is notably part of the goals course. So that's one thing. But we also have coming up the Change Your Life series, which is a different thing, which I guess you could think of as kind of tied to the goal relating stuff. Like the things that I'm going to be doing as part of it are related to the stuff in the goals course because I use that system to do my goal setting. If you're like, what the heck is she talking about? This is Epic Goals. Epic Goals is my goal setting course, and it takes you through all of those stages. And I use that process to set and achieve my goals. So I'm going to be using that for quarter 3, like I do every quarter, but more intentively. Like, we're going to document the process effectively to show you how and if you can change your life in 3 months. Like, to what extent could you do that? We're going to have a video coming out about it next week. If you haven't heard of it, it's called the Change Your Life in 3 Months series. Or at least that's what the working title is. I might change it before the day. But yeah, so that one is more details to come. Stay tuned. It'll be fun. But yeah. And just because I saw this one, do you have to take the course to be part of the weekly club? No, you do not. You do not have to be part of the course members to be part of the club. The club is more of a kind of like subscription based thing. So it's like a quarterly charge so that you can come along to those meetings, get things done with us, be held accountable and all of those kind of things. So 2 separate things. You do not have to be part of one to be part of the other. And we'd love to have you there, of course. So next question, which I know is from like half an hour ago. I apologize. I know I'm very behind because I like to run my mouth. Tink. All right. You inspired me to start bullet journaling. Yay! I'm glad to hear it. Mainly use an A5 convenience. Nice. A5 is a great size. Do you find decorating more distracting in your personal bullet journals? I think of decoration as like a fundamental. I'm going to take a sip of water and then we're going to elaborate. Beautiful. So when it comes to using my journals, I will not use it if I don't think it looks nice. If I think it looks ugly, I won't use it. looks nice is very subjective, obviously. For some people, they would look at this and be like, ew. Whereas for some people, they'd look at this and be like, oop, too much decoration. I don't like the way it looks. Or they might look at me like, oh, not enough decoration. I don't like the way it looks. So finding that balance can be kind of tricky. Sometimes I like things to be quite heavily decorated. This for me is heavy decoration, by the way. For some people, this is still minimal decoration. Whereas other times I will go for something very stripped back. I like how both of these things look. I like the kind of simplicity of this. I like that it's very clear and easy to see where the headings are. I like that I can highlight things, specific actions if I want to make them a priority. That is a good system for me. This is also a good system for me. I love these kind of layered decorative elements and the kind of different textures and stuff. So because I want to use my journal and because I know I won't use it if I don't like the way it looks, decoration is fundamental. It doesn't need to be the same kind of decoration. It doesn't need to be, collaging and sticking things in and such. It can just be as simple as some highlights. That can still be a type of decoration, but because of that kind of like functional reason for it, I don't find it distracting. I think that there is a point where it could be distracting. If you're finding yourself spending a lot of mental energy on figuring out how you want to decorate it or a lot of time putting that decoration in, then that could be detrimental to your planning process. But it is also a very individualistic thing. Like, we have some people in the community who like to do full-blown art pieces in their journal. Like, they're getting out their paints and their pencils and their pastels, and they're really going to town on doing full-blown art pieces in here. But that's because it serves their function. Like, their purpose for their journal might be really making it that kind of creative outlet for themselves, because maybe they don't have that in other places. I have more creative outlets than just my journal, though, because I make these videos, right? Like, this is technically a form of creativity, making videos. I mean, live streaming is just me running my mouth, but in terms of my other videos, there's a little bit more that goes into the process, I suppose. So I don't feel super compelled to do those types of artwork that are, for me at least, they would be a lot more time and labor intensive. But it's also thinking about like my skill set, where my kind of creative skills lie versus their creative skills. Like, if we were both me versus, it's not a versus, but me versus the person who likes to do full-blown art in their journal and give us an hour and what we could create, they're going to be wildly different because their skill set is wildly different to mine, so I do not necessarily find it distracting, but that's because I'm intentional about how I do it. It could be distracting, and if it does start to distract you from the purpose that you've given your journal, then it's time to make a change. But that doesn't mean that we don't have to have it in there or can't have it in there, if that kind of makes sense. Yeah. Hopefully that was helpful. Hopefully that kind of made general sense, because, yeah, sometimes I start talking and I don't know how the sentence will finish. Please let me know if you can relate to this. Are the Go Wild conferences invite only? No, you are more than welcome to come along. At some point this year, fingers crossed, it'll probably be this year. At some point this year, they're going to announce the official details. They typically release the tickets to people who are part of Wild University or alumni, like people who have attended before and such. They usually give them, like, I don't know, 2 weeks, 30 days or something to buy their tickets at a discounted rate. But after that, it opens to the general public. Literally anybody can come along. You buy a ticket, you get to show up and have a lot of fun with us, and it's going to be a great time. I really enjoyed this year's one. It was probably the best one I've been to. I say probably. It was the best one I've been to. There's no doubt about that. First of all, I didn't get sick. That was a really big, props to it. But it felt more kind of intimate, I suppose. Like, because there were less people there, it meant that you could kind of connect better with people, I felt, which was kind of nice. But anywho, so next question. We've got a couple that are repeat questions, and so I'm just going through and pruning those ones. Notice in previous videos you tend to meal plan. Yes. Any suggestions on getting into meal planning for a single individual? Ooh. Especially if you're okay. So we've kind of talked about meal planning before, but along with the advice from previous when we talked about it, which was pick things you actually like. if I was a single person and was trying to do my meal planning, I would still do my meal prep on Sundays, which is a little different to planning, but still do my meal prep on Sundays because then at least I know breakfast and lunch is taken care of. And then I would probably also plan things that are going to use the same types of ingredients in different ways. Mainly because if I was a single person, buying a bag of lettuce, say, or like a bag of cabbage is probably a better a better example. If I buy a bag of cabbage, I am not going to eat an entire bag of cabbage in one meal. So I need to find multiple meals that will use the cabbage so that then I can buy the one bag of cabbage and use it in multiple things. So that could be buy my bag of cabbage. I'm going to make Asian beef tacos with like a cabbage slaw. I'm going to make baked potatoes with some kind of a coleslaw. I'm going to make a chicken katsu bowl, which has cabbage on the side, kind of thing. Like, you notice that all of my cabbage is raw. I don't like cooked cabbage. But I find that those kind of like larger buying of an item, because like buying a single serve of cabbage is kind of difficult. I don't know. It probably depends on how much cabbage you eat. But finding specifically like meals that will tie into each other or have similar ingredients, it helps with food waste. You're less likely to waste the food or waste the ingredients if you've been intentional about picking meals that will utilize it in full. Same idea with coriander. Now I know, or cilantro. I know not everybody likes it, but I find that for the people who do like it, when you buy it, you don't usually use all that much of it. It's usually a garnish. You like sprinkle it on top or add a little bit in. It's kind of potent. You don't need to add that much. So finding multiple meals that use it means that then you're not going to end up wasting it. That would be a big thing for single person meal prep. But also the things that you can make a kind of family size and then freeze. That would be a good idea because then you don't have to cook as much. I find that curries, not that I eat stews, but stews, those kind of things that will freeze well and reheat, those are usually pretty positive. Let's see. Will Vogel join you on your channel or in the Planner Pals podcast? He has been on the channel before. I know that he doesn't mind popping in and saying hi and such, but it is not necessarily an intention to have him specifically featured. It's more just like a happy accident if it happens. But so we've got this one. That one's for reset week. That one is now decorated. I'm going to decorate at least this one because I feel like I'm just going to need some more writing space. I might not end up using it, but that's okay because this is the last month in this journal. We only have a couple more spreads left, so we'll keep on decorating. Sounds like a good idea. So, how do you manage with your Boudreaux getting so thick? I find that as I add more stuff, pictures, and whatever else I glue in, adds to the thickness and frustrates me when it's harder to close. It used to piss me off, like, to be honest. If my bullet journal didn't lay as flat as when I first got it out of the box, I used to get very irritated. Nowadays, I kind of like just love the chonk. I'm just like, oh, look at how lived in you are. Look at how much use I got out of this. And I get very proud of myself. Like, yeah, I did the thing. I actually made the most of the space that I had in here. It's probably, again, just one of those mindset shifts that comes over time as you use something, trying to figure out if this is the right way up. That looks upside down. That looks the right way up. Okay, cool. I know that it's just scribbly script tape, but there does seem to be a direction that it's supposed to go in. So, there we go. I'll just rip that off there. That looks good. Delicious. I don't mind it getting thick so much. What I don't like is when there are notable bumps that then are hard to write over. That bothers me. So I do try and avoid sticking things into my journal that are going to add to unevenness. As part of that, I also try and avoid sticking things in exactly the same places, because if you're putting washi tape, like, as an example, if you're lining the top and bottom of your page with washi tape over and over again, then you are going to get distinct bumps in that space specifically, which is not necessarily the nicest thing to write over. It makes it difficult to use your journal. So anything that makes my journal difficult to use, I try and avoid that. But the general chunk of it is not something that I worry about so much anymore. What you can be mindful of is the type of things you're sticking in. So are they thicker? For instance, if you're sticking in photos, could I print them on regular cartridge paper that's quite thin rather than photo paper, like, proper photo card, because that is going to be thicker. That is going to add to the bulk of your journal. So that could be something that you kind of consider. I don't know what kind of paper you're using though, so that may or may not be helpful. You've been watching since my second video. Wow, that's a while ago. You're dedicated to the cause. Such a pleasure having you here. So, question is, what keeps you going with journaling? Tried a few times with different ideas and couldn't get past a month. I think it's mainly, well, first of all, I have accountability because you're here with me, and that does definitely help. I think that for any habit, right? If we think about it as a habit and building a habit and such, making it easy, making it enjoyable, all of those kind of things, I enjoy it, so I don't find it as hard to keep up with. And I make sure that I'm regularly reviewing my system to make sure I'm still enjoying it, because that was what this was. This here was me having an existential journaling crisis about whether my journaling had just become performative and if I was just doing it for the hashtag Bujo aesthetic, or if it was actually helping me. But because I am mindful of that, I don't let my journaling get to a point. Often, obviously, this month was like I was feeling weird, but I don't let my journaling get to a point where it feels like it is not purposeful. Like, it has a point. And I think that the marrying of being a creative outlet and being something that is highly assistive in getting things done has made it so that it is something that I stick with. Like, I found bullet journaling at the end of my first year of teaching, where I was a stressed out, scatterbrained mess, even more than I currently am, which is definitely saying something. I was not feeling it. I was finding that things were slipping through the cracks, like not to a major extent, but enough that I was like, I need a solution. And then I saw these cute little people on the internet drawing in a notebook that had these little dots, and I'm like, oh, that looks fun. I could do that. And thus here we are. But because I went in with the intention of like I would like to help organize my life and be creative, it meant that there was that enjoyment factor and the functional factor. And so I think that has definitely helped me stick with it. I have that kind of like multi-purpose weave going. If you don't understand that reference, I apologize. This is a multi-purpose weave. This is handy. It's for paper towel anyway. So, next question, which was from a little while ago. I'm still catching up. I apologize. So, that one we already had, didn't we? All right. There we go. That one. Excellent. So, what is the equipment supplies process for creating your printed header stickers? Great question. First of all, we need a printer so that we can actually print them. I use an Epson EcoTank. You do not need to use an Epson EcoTank, but that is the one that I use. I have my sticker paper. Sticker paper is, personal choice as to which one in particular you want to use. I prefer to use a vellum sticker paper or a washi sticker paper, and I tend to link the one that I use in the description box of my videos. Do I recommend it? No. It is smudgy, and I will not be purchasing it again probably, but like it does fine. It does fine. So this one here, for instance, if I kind of go over it's been sitting here drying for like a month, so you probably can't really tell. Let's see if I can zoom in and show you. It's got a small amount of smudging, like you can barely see it, right? But you can see it on my finger. You can see it on my finger more than you can see it on the actual label itself. But when it's fresh out the printer, it is a lot more smudgy, which is not necessarily ideal. I will probably be getting the Avery slightly transparent ones next, because those are the ones that Monica uses and they look good in her journal. But I also will use matte white sticker paper sometimes, but only if I'm doing book covers, because that's, a full covered image and then I just cut out around the book cover, or if I'm doing, where are they? These types of headers, because it's a black box, so it doesn't matter if I print it on a white sticker label, because I'll just cut out around the black box. So the printer, mine's the Epson EcoTank, does not need to be that one, but that's the one I use. Then my sticker paper or whatnot, I use a vellum sticker paper, does not need to be that one, but it's the one I prefer. And then whatever font you want to go with. I guess you also need to have some kind of like word processing application, but I'm sure you could use Google Docs or something if you don't have one already installed on your computer. And in terms of the fonts, I will usually just go to a free font website. So like DaFont or 1001 Fonts or anything like that, and just find the style that matches the theme that I'm going with. Usually I will not go directly to the font website. I will do a Google search and say like, "Oh, I'm looking for a like Celtic inspired font or a Gothic inspired font or a circus font or like it just, whatever theme I'm going with." Um it has been helpful. Yeah. But so hopefully that answers the full question, right? Just checking. All right, equipment, supplies, process. Yes. And then in terms of the process, type it out, make sure it gets measured correctly, which we looked at the start of the video, and then stick them in. Hey, Vogel.
Hello. I'm just opening the door for you.
I appreciate you opening the door for me. Yes, the vacuuming has been done now, so now the door is allowed to be opened. Huzzah. There we go. So we'll just trim that edge off to make sure it's nice and flush to the page. I mean, we trimmed off barely anything. I don't even know if you can see it, but it counts, and I don't want it to be a mess. Put that away. There we go. Cute. All right. Bit personal. No need to answer. Any updates on the once mentioned plan to get checked or diagnosed? I filled in the paperwork, and then they said that there was insufficient evidence, so they need me to send in my school reports, and that sounded like the least appealing thing I have ever done ever, so I haven't done it yet. So they're like, yeah, with the questionnaire you filled out, we need more information for this. And that sounded like a mission. So I have put that on the future may problems list, and I'm ignoring it. Teehee. Alrighty. For your scrap notebook versus your Bujo, do they need to be the same size or one can be bigger than the other? Totally not needing to have them exactly the same size. I just prefer them to be fairly similar, just so that then if I'm mocking up a layout or practicing a layout, then at least it's kind of going to be roughly similar. Sorry while I'm playing with the exposure on my computer to make it so we can actually see what I'm doing. But yeah, I aim for them to be roughly the same size. It doesn't have to be though, but that's because most of the time for my scrapbook or scribble book, I'm just doing rough mock-ups, if anything. Let's see, like this was a rough mock-up, and then me practicing with my pen, and then using up my ink so I don't feel like I wasted it, because I was talking to Mark about the possibility of changing the ink in my pen, my one fountain pen that I love. My one fountain pen. Her name is Iris. She's beautiful. He gave it to me, but I haven't changed the ink in it since I first filled it up. So, whoopsie. Let's see. So, next question. Ooh, okay. Have you ever seen a multi-week Alastair method variation? More well-structured than just 1 week after another down the page. Have you ever seen a multi-week Alastair method variation? Like, do you? I guess I have questions here. So, are you wanting to use it for the weeks, or are you wanting to use it for the days within the week, or are you wanting to use it for both? Because if we're thinking about it in terms of both, then hey, Scribblebook, come help us out for a second. Go away. The Scribblebook is here. The Scribblebook is here to save us. Because if I'm thinking of multi-week, ouch, that was sharp. Don't put sharp things in your pencil case. Well, I mean, you can put sharp things in your pencil case. Just be careful. Just be careful when you put your hand in there. So, okay, if we're thinking about it as multi-week and you want to put the days of the week with that as well, let's just take it for, I don't know, a month or something. So next month will be 27, 28, 29, 30, and 31. And then we'll have the task. And then if you want to specify which day of the week you're doing it on, you could write down like Monday, laundry. And then maybe if you want to do something on Tuesday, you do T epic goals, because that's currently when our meetings are. So you could do something like that. In terms of then crossing it off, like, okay, should I just zoom you in? Yes, I'm just going to zoom you in so that we can have a look at what we're doing. Whee! Excellent. So it could be something kind of like this, where you put down the week number and then you put down the initial for the day of the week and write your task list here. And then instead of crossing them off underneath the header, you just use that as an indicator of like when you're going to be doing it. So we like cross that off. Yeah. Or you could do it the other way around. So Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. And then be like, oh yes, dot task. On Monday of week 27, I want to do the laundry. Or whatever. It could be something like that. I'm not too sure if otherwise, if you wanted it to be more like just the regular Alistair, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, dot task, and then do 1 week after the other. So you write down all of your tasks for this week. So like whatever you've got going on, like, oh yeah, I want to do that on both those days, and then all of this. And then once you finish off the week, because this will be your task bullet, task bullet, task bullet, task bullet. Then once you finish off the week, you just rule a line and start the next week. So that could be something. I guess it just depends on how exactly you want to capture the information and what information you want to capture. Could you put 2 weeks of dates instead of the day letters? 2 weeks of dates instead of the day letters? Probably. That could also work. I might need an explanation of how you mean that, but I think I in theory get what you mean. 2 weeks of dates instead of the day letters. Yeah. So instead of maybe Monday, Tuesday, blah, blah, blah. What's the date today? The 16th. You could do like 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28. I think that's 2 weeks. If my math is correct, it might not be. Shrug. And then if you wanted to have some kind of indication of what day of the week that was, you could also put the initials underneath it if you want to. Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. I was not right. Oh, she was so close. She lived as few did your dream. I'd probably have put that in the middle. Just ignore that. And then task. I'd also probably switch these two around because I just like the idea of the initial being on top of the number for some reason. Yeah. So that could also be a way that you do it. It depends on how much task real estate you want to have, though, because if you feel like this is not enough space to write in your tasks, then maybe this wouldn't work, but you could have 2 weeks captured at once. It's effectively like a fortnightly or a bi-weekly Alistair method. Yeah, it just depends on how you want to use it, I suppose. If you're doing it this way and you still want something to cross this off, you could just cross it out, which is certainly a look, or you could circle it with color, or if you have a dot marker, you could dot mark over the top of it. Just make sure you're not using a pen like this one, because the ink joy will definitely pick up the ink and smudge it, which would be like wah wah. But hopefully that helps. Hopefully that is kind of in part possibly what you're looking for. But yeah. So also, just as a side note, if you put an excessive number of question marks, it does not make your question more likely to be answered. It just means that you are being pushy. I'm just putting that out there. I'm just going through the questions in the order that they came up. So I do apologize if I'm not at your question yet. I do aim to get to as many of them as I can. But alrighty, put that one back on screen. Hello, friend. And we're going to freeze this so then we don't have the in-out focus. Huzzah, we're good. All right. So, how would you think of what to track? Where do you find ideas to track? Please, I've been hunting. Alrighty. So, depends. Like, I don't think that we should track anything that isn't going to be helpful to us. Like, it's all good and well to want to track a certain number of things. Like, if you set up a page and you're like, oh, I've got this much space for trackers or whatever. And I'm definitely guilty of this, don't get me wrong. But if you're not going to do anything with the information, or if it's not going to help hold you accountable to something you want to do more of, then I don't see there being a lot of point in tracking the thing, right? So let's say, for instance, you wanted to track your water intake or whatnot. Is this going to be a way to incentivize you to drink more water? Also, Tink, make sure that you're having a drink. Okay? If you find that it doesn't incentivize you to drink more water and it just makes you feel bad about yourself, then it's not really fulfilling the purpose that you've assigned it, right? If you want to track, for instance, like your medication, and it's important to do this because if you don't track it, then you either don't remember to take it or you like won't be able to have that record to like show your doctor or something like that, or like you want to correlate it to your mood or something. Like there is a purpose there. It makes sense to keep track of that thing. I also find that the purpose that you have for it will dictate how you set the tracker up. So if you want to find a correlation between two different things you're tracking, then the style of tracker you use needs to make that easier, right? So for me, that would be maybe putting the trackers on the same spot or like in the same layout. It could be having them tracked on the same type of graph. Like if we go back to my scribble graph, which obviously got used to completion. Haha, no, it did not, but that's fine. Scribble graph, where are you? Where are you? Flip, flip, flip. So this one here, the purpose was to see how these things actually influenced each other. But it didn't necessarily make it that easy to do because there were too many things on here and it was kind of a mess. There would have been better ways to keep track of this, maybe with a color coding system rather than a line graph. I feel like if you're going to do a line graph, you might want to limit yourself to 3 things because it's a little bit easier to decipher it that way rather than this, which is a noodle mess. Obviously I died, which is fun. But yeah. So in terms of setting up your tracker, make sure it's something that is going to be useful for you in some way. And don't get me wrong, the use can just be I'm curious. Like if your use for it is just being curious about the thing, that is totally a use that is fine. I'll find you an example. Because we love an example. It makes more sense if we have an example. Scuffle, 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 scuffle. Alright. There we go. Good example? Good example? Yes, good example. All right. So, this cheeky boy, my first Archer and Olive journal. So special, so special. This was from 2020, the first half of 2020. And in May, it's gonna be May, or it was May, so I crossed out the gonna be. But I decided to keep track of my Coke Zero intake. Is this trying to limit me taking Coke Zero? No. Absolutely not. I would not deprive myself of this joy. But I was just genuinely curious about how much I was consuming in any given day. I wanted to know, like, do I actually have a problem? Maybe, but it depends on what your definition is. If your definition is having 5 cans of Coke a day, then no, I don't have a problem. If your definition of problematic is feeling like you have to have one every single day, then maybe. But I was just curious about it. I wanted to see what my intake was like, what the kind of statistics around that was. Also thinking about, are there particular days of the week that I'm more likely to consume more or anything like that? I was curious, so I tracked it. Right? I didn't do anything with this information after the month. It's not like I used it to incentivize me to change my Coke Zero intake habits or anything, but I wanted to see what it was like. And it looked pretty, right? So because this was something that I wanted it to be very clear, easy to read, all right, and very easy to see what the kind of like daily statistics were across the entire of the month. That is why I picked a monthly tracker. I picked it so it had a nice large spacing. I didn't go higher than was probably necessary because I already knew that I wasn't drinking like 6 cans of Coke a day, or at least I suspected. I suspected I wasn't drinking 6 cans of Coke a day. So there's not much point in setting up a tracker that goes to the moon when you only need to go around the corner. Like, if we think about it in terms of a tracker that was I kept for way too long, but we're going to go back and have a look at it because why not? It's right here. All right. So these are thousands of steps, right? So how many thousand steps did I do in a day? So did I do 1,000, 2,000, yada, yada, yada? There was no point in me going to 10 for this because this is when lockdown happened. So I wasn't moving at all. I mean, let's just, be real on the fact that even when it wasn't lockdown, I wasn't moving all of that much kind of a thing. But I was trying to use this to hold myself accountable to moving, but I did not change anything about my habits in having this. Like, if anything, it just made me feel bad about myself. So eventually I got rid of it because we don't want our journal to make ourselves feel bad. That's not the point. We're not going to bully ourselves into changing our habits. That's not how it works most of the time. For some people, sure. Not for me. So eventually I let this tracker go because it was, became very apparent that it wasn't something that was holding me accountable. It wasn't something that I needed the information for. I also had this information elsewhere, so it wasn't super necessary to have it in my journal. I had it in a digital space on Fitbit, so it's like, But anywho, so in keeping a tracker, in terms of the things to track, my recommendation would be think about the goals and projects that you're working on, anything in your life that you're actively trying to pursue, or maybe inactively trying to pursue and you're just kind of curious about, and track those things. So, for instance, for me, currently I am keeping track of my weight. I'm not doing it in my journal, but I'm keeping track of my weight. I am loosely, but not actively, loosely keeping track of the number of steps I get each day, mainly because I'm just trying to be a little bit more active. I'm trying to up my step count. I'm not keeping track of it in my journal because I don't feel like I need to write it down here. I'm also keeping track of it on a day-to-day basis, just, flipping my watch over and being like, oh, hey, I have done 4,800 steps today, kind of a thing. So I don't need to track it in here. I'm just kind of keeping track of it by looking at my watch. But yeah, so let's go have a look. Hopefully that was helpful. Oh, yay. I'm glad it makes more sense. Yay. That's the point. Alrighty. I know we already answered this question, but Finch is not going, or at least it is going, but now it's kind of gone. So it was going well for a while, but it got to the point where, because the way that Finch works, every single day when you send your little bird or burb on an adventure, it like brings up 2 pop-up windows being like, hey, it's going on an adventure. Make sure you check back. Here's it on a walk. I'm just like, this is becoming more irritating than it is helpful. So I would only log into it to spam the tasks that I would in theory do for the day to send the bird on a walk. So it wasn't assisting me. So I did end up deleting the app. It was fun while it lasted, and it held me accountable at least for 2 weeks. But that's also the thing. Like, I'm trying not to get so wedded to a system that even if it's not working for me, I feel like I have to keep it around. So for instance, in terms of my journal, like, for the longest time, I was like, I have to have a monthly log because anytime I don't have a monthly log, it feels weird. And when it's here, I don't use it. But if I don't have it, it feels weird. And I need to have it here. And I kind of got to the point, it's like, but Jess, like, sure, it'll feel weird for a month. But if you do it for 2 or 3 months, it won't feel so weird anymore. And you're not using it anyway. So why put the time, effort, and energy into setting it up if it's not fulfilling the purpose that you were supposedly assigning to it? That idea of like kill your darlings kind of a thing. I think that that's something that they use in terms of the editing process for writing. It's like getting rid of stuff that you're kind of holding on to because you wrote it and it feels precious in some way, but it's not super necessary to keep there. Yeah. So that's one of the ways that I'm killing my darlings. It's not a nice term. So yes, that is how it is going. How do you sign up for the goal accountability group? So that one is via link. I don't know if it's linked in the description box of this video, but I can go find you a link. Let's go have a look. So we will go over here. That one, copy that one, go to a new tab. Yeah, I know that this is very compelling gameplay right now. Watching me not do anything because I'm trying to type at the same time. So when you jump over there are 2 spaces along the left-hand panel when it shows up. One of them is for the course, that's the top, and one of them is for the club. The club is down the bottom. That's the one I'm linking you to. So it kind of like, hopefully, if it drops you in the right place, which it should, it will drop you to the club space. So it'll say club members only and give you kind of like a rundown of what the club is for and such. And if you want to join us, we would love to have you with us. We have our accountability meetings each week so that we can get stuff done together. And it's just a really good intentional time to make sure that you're carving out time to work on your goals, because oftentimes that is the thing that holds people back the most. Like, they have things that they want to do, but they don't have that dedicated set aside time to actually work on them. Yeah. So what program do you use to make your stickers that you put in your journal? I mainly just use Microsoft Office, but I also use Photoshop depending on what it is I'm trying to make. So if it's the titles for the reading journal headers, which I like to use the lettering style that is specific to the book covers. Those ones I will sometimes be able to find online, which is always very helpful because then I don't need to make pictures myself. Yay. But sometimes I have to go and make them myself, and I just use Photoshop for that. I take the book cover into Photoshop, I remove everything that isn't the title, and then I just put that over into Microsoft Word so I can size it appropriately and such. Oh, anybody know what printer for CD-ROMs are good? I have no clue. I am not your person, but hopefully somebody else in the chat has better help for you there, because I don't even know how that would work. It would certainly not work in my printer because I know that my printer, the paper sits in here, and then like I can't even do this with my hand. Okay, it sits in this way, and then it goes up and around and out. A CD doesn't bend that well, so it would not work in my one. You might need like a special one. I'm not too sure, but yeah. Alrighty, let's see. Next question. Will you be starting vlogs again? We are going to be having a vlog series as part of the Change Your Life in 3 Months challenge. That one is going to be hosted over here rather than over on the vlog channel though. So I'm hoping at some stage to start up vlogs again because I like the idea of it. I have a footage. I have but one. I have a footage for the trip that Vogel and I took to Rotorua, which was a holiday that we took in April. We decided like on the way there that we were going to vlog it. I think maybe not on the way there. I think we decided slightly before we left the house that we were going to vlog the trip because it's nice for our memory keeping. But I would like to possibly start weekly vlogs again, but I think I might wait until after the Change Your Life challenge because that one is already going to be a weekly vlog style. Also, if you ever need to adhere PET tape to your page and get all the air bubbles out, I just use the back of my nail. And I know that there are fancy tools out there for this, but this one is free. I grew it myself. Haha. And it works just fine. So possibly starting vlogs again, but for now it's just going to be the Change Your Life challenge, and that will go for the entire of Q3. Yay! Are you planning on filming your Q3 reset week? Yes, I am, and I am so excited about it. Oh my gosh. If you haven't already watched the most recently released video, we talked through what I'm doing for reset week. So previous reset week I filmed, and that one was just like a lot of fun showing you guys the process and such. So I'm going to be doing that again. We've got this stuff and also some fun kind of social activities that I have planned, which I guess technically is over here on the social calendar. So it's all good. Alrighty, what's your top tip for people starting out on YouTube and trying to build an audience? Good question. Consistency is key. Like I think that one of the things that it not only helps you get better at the whole process and such, but it also means that you're going to be building a community that can kind of like rely on you, is that kind of consistency of posting. That doesn't mean it needs to be like every day or twice a week or anything like that. When I first started, my intention was just once a week. It was going to be once a week. It was going to be on a Sunday or something like that. I can't even remember what day it was, but that was what I was holding myself to. And prior to that, I had already thought about a bunch of different things that I wanted to do as part of it. Like, I don't know if it was in my first journal. It was somewhere though. It was somewhere. Let's see if it was in here. It might have been in my second journal. I had already started writing down a list of ideas of things that I wanted to put in YouTube videos if I was ever going to do YouTube. Because for some reason I had already started thinking about the fact that I wanted to do YouTubing for journaling, even though I had just started. I'm pretty sure it's in my second journal, so it's somewhere else. But so I'd already thought about it for a while in terms of wanting to make it and such, and had kind of an idea of the stuff that I wanted to put on the channel. So it meant that I already had a decent chunk of ideas, like at least 10 solid video ideas. I'm like, that's 10 weeks. You know, if you're releasing a video a week, that's 10 weeks of videos. Plenty more time to think of more ideas, which is good. So when you're starting out, consistency is good. But more than anything, like done is better than perfect. Mainly because when you're just starting out, and even now, you're not going to be perfect, right? Perfection is a lie. Perfection is something that just holds us back from getting things done a lot of the time. I know this is all very rich coming from me, given the fact that I am a persnickety biscuit and I do have perfectionistic tendencies. But if I had have let that perfectionism hold me back, we wouldn't have the channel. We wouldn't be doing this. Like this would be nothing. You'd be doing something else with your time right now. I'm so glad you're here. Thank you for being here. Anyways, but because of that, because I have those perfectionistic tendencies and such, I could very easily have let myself just not get started and not do YouTube because it was like, oh, I sound weird, like my footage looks wrong, like all of this kind of stuff. I thought I needed to have the perfect equipment. I went and bought myself like an $800 camera to do YouTube because I thought that's what I needed to have. Like I had to have the perfect setup and it had to be with like a DSLR camera, which I did not know how to use. So I don't know why. Okay, I know exactly why. Again, aforementioned perfectionistic tendencies and such, and not being able to do things by half measures. But I thought that I needed to have like a hardcore camera to be able to record YouTube videos. Your phone works fine. Do not let that hold you back. If you have a phone, you already have a camera and a microphone that is good enough to do YouTube. Like, I think that only maybe my first video on YouTube, and this is my very first one, which I don't think I even have anymore, because it was released like 6 months before my current first upload. That one was filmed with the DSLR. The one that I have up on my channel currently as my first video was filmed with my phone. I did not have a tripod. Okay, correction. I had a tripod. I had no way to attach the phone to the tripod, so I tied the phone to the tripod with string. Like literally like kitchen twine. I got out some kitchen twine and attached my phone to the tripod with string so that I could film my first YouTube video, right? You do not need fancy things. You just need to get started. Even though we don't like the advice, like I don't even like the advice of just do it. Do not let those ideas of like, oh, I have to have this, I have to have that, it has to. Have tos are not where good things happen, all right? We just need to get started with what we've got. And you can do that, and I believe in you. Hopefully that's helpful. But yeah, consistency and not letting your perfectionism hold you back from getting things done. Stick that down. One of my favorite YouTube videos of mine was one of my earlier ones. My tripod fell over while I was trying to record, and I kept it in because I'm that way inclined. And it's me just going, ouch, like sounding quite Australian, which was also kind of adds some charm to it, I think. At least, I think it does. Because my tripod fell over and like hit me in the hands while I was trying to work on something. I know which setup it was for. I know which layout it was for. I just don't know what video number it was, but it was pretty good. Oh dear. If you have seen that video, you let me know. But anywho, we'll put that one here. All right. Excellent. Good question. What is Boudreaux Bootcamp? I know you were asking Shah, but Boudreaux Bootcamp is also something that we do on the Discord server once per quarter as part of Reset Week for people to get their journals set up for the quarter ahead, right? So if you, want to hang out with like-minded, like-spirited, fabulous people who are really into journaling just like you are, and you want to just chill out, get your journal set up and all of that, then make sure that you jump over to the Discord because that is where Boudreaux Bootcamp happens. As said, happens once per quarter. It runs for like 2 or 3 days, depending on when in the year we are. And it's just a good opportunity to have some journal and chill with the fine folks of the internet, aka the fine folks of our community. I don't have a link to it on hand right now because I'm currently cutting out a sticker, and by a sticker I mean a PET tape, but I can get you a link in a second. Whee! I quite like this lace tape. It's just like a nice little bit of decoration that isn't too obtrusive, but it still adds some visual interest to the page, which I appreciate. All right. There we go. Have you used your Cricut much? Any tips? I have not. I will say, general tips is that there are really good tutorials on YouTube for very simple projects that you can do to get your confidence up. I just haven't actively pursued them. So outside of that, I am not your person. But we do have people in our server that are a lot more well-versed in terms of using cutting machines like Silhouettes and Cricuts and such, and they have oftentimes helped people out when they're in a pickle. So, haha, just another shameless plug for our server because we're cool people and we want you to hang out with us because you're also cool people. Does that count? I think it counts. All right. So, Question. I want to start a bullet journal, but I own so many ruled journals. Should I buy a dotted journal or can I use the ruled ones I already own? Any tips for ruled bullet journaling? I have a video on the channel about journaling in a ruled journal. In particular, it's more so thinking about journaling in a ruled journal that has quite thin paper. So a lot of the advice is targeted towards that. Mainly it's things like using printables and such anywhere that you would typically use vertical lines so that you don't have to try and like line them up perfectly and such. I am not necessarily going to endorse buying new journals and such when you already have journals that you could use, but if you think you're not going to have as much joy with it, then yeah, go buy yourself a dot grid notebook. That's not to say that you have to have a dot grid notebook to do any kind of journaling. Plenty of fine folks enjoy using a ruled journal. A lot of people actually really prefer it because it means that they have the guidelines that they can write on. Like, I don't mind using a dot grid as a horizontal guideline. That's fine for me. Some people prefer ruled, but we do have a separate video that kind of talks more about how to do that. It's one of the more popular videos on the channel. It's also old, so please don't judge past Jess. She was trying. Like, I think she did a good job. It's obviously still a decent resource, but it is an older video. Alrighty, we need some stickers. I need to figure out which ones I want. All right. Hopefully I haven't missed anybody's questions as I've been going through. So if you still have a question that I haven't answered, just make sure that you let me know. But favorite place to buy ephemera, I typically just use like Journal Say or Stationery Pal because you can get them in larger packs, and for the most part, because it's cost effective. That's something that I appreciate. But I know that a lot of people for their ephemera they actually actively collect pieces. I don't typically do that. I am more of the kind of person who will buy packs of ephemera and such, and typically it'll be Journal Say or Stationery Pal. I know that you can get them from other places and other people who do kind of like curated packs and such that have variety in terms of the elements. So they might have, some paper, but also some tape and also some lace and such. I'm more likely to just go and buy like a full paper pack, a full tape set, that kind of a thing. I usually, when I go for ephemera hunting, I'm just kind of looking for a particular color palette because then it gives me some guidelines in terms of what I'm looking for. That looks relatively straight. I'm sure future Jess won't mind if it's a little crooked. I don't think it's crooked. It looks relatively straight. All right. So, next question. If you're thinking of having a YouTube channel, what editing software do you use? Is that different from Planet Pals? I was going to say Vogel. That's not correct. Vogel doesn't do any editing. That's a lie. Mark edits the podcast typically. So technically speaking, yes, different editing software because it's his. But I use Filmora mainly because when I started doing my videos and such, I just typed up best editing software for beginners. That came up, so I bought it. You do not have to buy it though. You can use I think like DaVinci Resolve, I'm pretty sure is free and online. I haven't used it myself, so I'm not too sure. I'm not too sure which way this sticker goes. Maybe that way? That looks weird. I kind of like it this way, but then that flower looks silly. Okay, it's definitely this way. Maybe it's like that. I'm not using it. It's confused me already. Maybe that one. Yeah, sure. Why not? But yeah, you don't need to buy an editing software. They do have free ones like DaVinci Resolve that you can use. So I would probably recommend that. I think that Deb also recommends it here, it seems. But yeah, I haven't tried it myself. But again, it is one that is commonly used. So if you have any questions or such, there's probably some very decent tutorials for it online as well, like on YouTube or wherever else. Attempting to get the back off of the sticker. There we go. Thank you so much. Beautiful. I love having pre-decorated layouts to work in because it makes my day-to-day journaling faster. Because of the style of journaling I like to do, I just like to go and, plonk in my header, write out my list, plonk in the next header, write out my list. I know I work in 2 columns, so when I'm putting things down, I try not to edge into other columns. I'm not necessarily the greatest at it. This one is definitely edging in, but it's all good. So when I'm just like slapping these things down, that's kind of what I'm looking out for. Not that anybody asked, but I just thought I'd let you know. All right. I think that was all of the questions. I think am I caught up? Did I manage to capture all of them? And there's somebody sitting there like, "No, you distinctly missed my question. You're rude and I don't want to watch your videos anymore." And to you I apologize. I'm sorry that I missed it. It was not my intention. But if you do still have a question, make sure to chuck it down with the 3 question marks because then I can spot them nice and easy like. I think we had a question before that was about beginner layouts. And I think that that question is hard to answer because, again, it depends on what you want your journal to do for you. If you haven't been able to tell, I'm very big on the idea of your journal fulfilling its purpose and destiny, and that is the destiny and purpose that you have outlined for it. So, if you want your journal to be a spot for creativity, then essential elements are going to be decoration, if that's the kind of creativity you want to do. If you think that your journal is going to be essential in helping you keep organized for school or work, well, both of those are very different kettles of fish to each other. So you might need a school timetable, or you might need to have a kind of like, I don't know, meeting agenda template or something in your journal. Like, depends on your work as well, because there's funnily enough a lot of different jobs. So beginner layouts, tricky, but I would recommend that video that I mentioned before, the idea that you only really need 5 layouts because those are the 5 base structures that you can apply to almost anything that you put in your journal. Alrighty, gorgeous humans. I'm looking decorated. I'm feeling funky, feeling fresh. I do need to go and put some labels on this though, because right now there's just a whole bunch of blank boxes and that's not helpful. I just like to use the initials for the days of the week down the side here because that kind of shows me the dividing spaces for each of the different days. And then I put in BLD for breakfast, lunch, dinner because I don't record snacks on here. Mainly because this is like kind of half meal plan, half meal log. It's a meal plan in that I try and set it up. I try and populate it before the week actually starts and check it off once I've eaten the thing, but I don't always fill it out on time. So, alrighty. So, is your Nutro setup going to be part of Reset Week? It is already set up. If you want a spoiler, we'll do a teaser. It's not really a teaser. I don't like teasing you. I'm not trying to tease you. But this is the kind of theme we're going with. It's kind of like Daisy-esque inspired because, I called her Daisy. I'll give you 3 guesses as to why. That video should be coming out this week though, so stay tuned for that. It should be here soon. Let's see. I feel like an imposter, but will co-lead a Bujo course in recovery college with a therapist. Oh, that's cool. So wait, you're co-leading a bullet journal course in a recovery college with a therapist. Any tips? Focus on mental well-being, not productivity. Well, hey, that's still a thing, right? Like, if we're going with the idea of, journals fulfilling a purpose and such, like, what kind of things? And noting that I am not a doctor and not a therapist here. Okay, all right, we're gonna put that out there. But what kind of things can have the most bang for your buck? I suppose, like the most positive impact with the least amount of effort. And I think that a lot of people, I'm going to sound so negative, a lot of people harp on about gratitude, but they have a point, and that's the part that sucks the most. We can all just sit here and get all frustrated, like, they told me to drink water and go on a walk for my stupid mental health, and it worked, and now I have better stupid mental health. But things like those little daily pieces of gratitude and gratitude logs and such. And you don't necessarily have to have it as a monthly log either, because, like we touched on, monthly doesn't necessarily work for everybody. Like, for instance, my Good Job Me log, which, again, I stand by a Good Job Me log because this is something that you can do to indicate that you are making positive progress in the direction that you want to go, even if it is small. Like, we don't have to have a daily win that is a massive milestone. It can be something small, like took time for myself. That's a big deal for me because I'm not good at that. It could be something like, went to my dental appointment. I booked that in January. Is it really an achievement to just go? Yes, because I was almost late because I wasn't paying attention to the time. Got my exclusive video done and out. Love that. It was always going to happen, but it's just a reminder of you're actually doing things with your days. You are moving in the direction you want to in life. This is good, right? We've noted it down so that we can remind ourselves of the fact that we're actually getting stuff done. Is that helpful? Who knows? But yeah, if you have any particular layouts or ideas, because anytime I go to a workshop, right, I want to leave with tangible ideas, things that I can actually do rather than just general information about stuff that this is the thing that always bothered me about professional development. You'd sit there in a room with all of your colleagues, and the person presenting would harp on about how something was super important, and they would give you nothing tangible to do with that information. They'll be like, oh, differentiating learning is really important. Like, it's really important to meet kids where they're at and all of this. And I'm like, yes, fully agree. Love that. How do we do it? And in particular, how do I do it where I'm at right now? Because, being a science teacher, it's a little different to differentiation in an English classroom, which is a little different to a differentiation in an art classroom kind of a thing. So this is just for me, obviously. Personally, when I go to a workshop, I want to have a tangible takeaway, something that I could just, pick up and do. So what kind of things could you give them as stuff that they could actually do? That might help. Shrug. Let's see. Alrighty, next question. Thank you so much for the wins log. Oh, I'm glad that it has been helpful for you, because that's something that I have found helpful, even though I haven't actively filled it in. Just highlighting the fact that I am doing things, my ta-da list or wins log or anything like that, or the one that we had in the goals journal, because we had that one in the goals journal as well, didn't we? And that was less of a daily win. That was more of a actually collating the wins. Where do we put that? This one's a personal journal. There we go. So writing things down, and even small things. They don't have to be big things. I intentionally wrote down brush tooth with toothpaste. Good job, me. There's also other things that I've done that are a little bit more big ticket and such. But it's just that reminder of you have done things. You have reasons to celebrate. You're making progress. Alrighty. So, question, are you doing any editing on photos before you print them out? For me, they often turn out dark after printing. I typically don't, but that's because I don't care quite as much about the finish. If something prints out and it's ridiculously dark, though, I will probably, add that editing step into my process. But I don't often do any kind of hardcore editing. It would probably just be in the Microsoft Office app. Let's see if I can insert a picture and see if we can edit it or something, or show you the editing tools that I would possibly use for it. Do I have a picture? No. I have screenshots, pictures of a bullet journal. I should probably use a picture of my own bullet journal if I'm going to use that, because otherwise people might get a little bit upset. Upsetty spaghetti. Okay, so if we just go and have a look at this one, which is notably a photo that I have for a thumbnail. If this had been printed off and I'm like, oh god, that's really dark, it doesn't look right, then I would probably just jump over to the corrections tab and play around with the brightness and contrast, so that then I know that you can't see it, but you can see it changing, hopefully. So this is normal. This is with an increase in something. It's not telling me. More bright, less bright. Increased contrast. Yeah, okay. Down is more contrast, up is less contrast. There we go. So I would probably play around with one that kind of looks okay as a print. What I would probably do, honestly, if I was finding that was a big problem, is that I would copy this image 6 or 7 times and play around with those editing tools in the picture format corrections space up the top here. And I would pick out 8 options that look like they could be good, paying particular attention to which one I put where, so that then when I print it off on just regular paper or something that you don't mind getting rid of, you can kind of use that as a template to say okay, this is the particular brightness and contrast edit that I want to use to get a picture that looks the way that I want it to look, which could possibly help you out. Alrighty. Will you be doing a mid-year video update for your life gamification and tracking? Haha, bippity-boppity, backing the heck out of that question. No jokes. I found that I got to a point where I didn't need my gamification anymore. So I stopped doing it. That idea of, killing your darlings and such. I loved my gamification. It, at the start of the year, for the first 3 months, 4 months that I was using it, really held me accountable to doing the things that I wanted to do more of. And then I kind of habitualized them, and then I didn't need the gamification anymore. So I probably won't be doing an update, just because it's not really happening. Because I didn't need it anymore. Yeah, which is kind of exciting, right? That's kind of the point of doing these things. You implement the habit tracker or the routine tracker or something like that to incentivize you to do the routine. But once the routine or the habit becomes a routine or a habit, then you don't need the tracker anymore. That's kind of exciting. But anyway, teams, it is actually Vogel's birthday, so we're going to go out for food. It has been such a pleasure hanging out with you. If you liked this video, make sure to give it a big thumbs up, and I will see you in the next one. Our next one is probably going to be in 2 weeks' time at a different time slot. Stay tuned for more information on that. But if you are part of the team with a capital T, then we actually have a live stream for you guys coming same time next week, and I will see you there. Alrighty, gorgeous humans. I'll talk to you later. Bye.